Return to Monkey Island begins with protagonist Guybrush Threepwood, a bit older and with a graying beard, recounting one of his adventures to his son on a park bench. The kid is cautious. How long will this take? Will he finally get to hear the story about what that mythical secret of Monkey Island really was? The latest entry in the famous point-and-click adventure series is first and foremost a reflection on its own heritage. In that sense, it has a lot in common with the culture of reboots in cinema, TV, and gaming, from Top Gun Maverick to Sonic Mania to Cobra Kai. They're not just reboots, they try to extract and reimagine what made the original so endearing, at best offering a fresh spin, and at worst just regurgitating styles, themes, or ideas that the fans are intimately familiar with. What makes Return to Monkey Island a bit different is that it doesn't just take players through all the familiar motions. It also cares to reflect on this fandom and the kinds of inflated memories that fans experience as they grow up. Monkey Island devotees were as excited as Guybrush's son when they heard about the new story. But they're not kids anymore, they're mostly grown-ups who've waited for 3 decades for this new game. Ron Gilbert and his team seem to have created Return to Monkey Island both for and as a reply to these fans, who have roamed internet forums to discuss the original 2 Monkey Island games for years, most notably the second game's confusing ending. Monkey Island 2 starts as an embedded narrative in which Guybrush tells his girlfriend Elaine about how he ended up hanging above a canyon. When he's done talking, at the game's end, he literally falls into a non sequitur. The story turns out to be tucked inside another embedded narrative, and the whole adventure seems nothing more than the fantasy of a kid in a theme park. Or was it? Gilbert sneakily ended that second game with a hint towards a grander and maybe more satisfying diegetic explanation, which fans have tried to put together for years. I suppose I'm one of these longtime fans, so before starting Return to Monkey Island, I replayed the original. It wasn't hard to get through, as the order of the puzzles is pretty much burned into my skull. Monkey Island's pixel art is still extremely impressive, as is its warm, fuzzy MIDI synthesizer soundtrack. And while playing, there were these little flickering moments in which I was a little kid again, clicking on random objects and trying to decipher the clues in a language I didn't speak yet. I remember being stuck for an inordinately long time in one part of the scum bar at the very beginning of the game. It must have been for weeks, and it was just because the screen only starts scrolling right if you click on the dog or the side of the screen, neither of which had occurred to me. When I finally did, it was like a mini epiphany. The whole thing was just extremely mysterious in a way that games of the 80s and 90s still could be, not just because I was a kid, but through a number of specificities that are no longer appropriate for the medium, like the lack of voice acting that gave the music more room to breathe, or the slow pace with which Guybrush moves forward. No game designer in their right mind would create something like this today, and there's no going back to it. Maybe that's the inevitable way in which the epic adventures of our childhood play out. We grow out of them. And they are epic not just because of what they actually were, but because our memory expands them, blows them out of proportions, like a voodoo spell. Replaying the game, I got to the point where you follow the recipe to the magic potion in the ship. There's an explosion, a little cutscene, and you end up on the shores of Monkey Island. It was one of those boyish dreams, something like reading Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, and experiencing it now gave me one of those Proustian Madeleine moments, a flash in which you inhabit your old self for a millisecond, like you're discovering it again. This powerful echo that makes you realize you're still somehow exactly the same person you were when you were 9. So, like many other fans, I was maybe hoping to return to that island, not just to see it again, but to feel it again. that sense of wonder. I knew it was impossible, and so did Ron Gilbert. The titular return to Monkey Island in this game is almost an anecdotal affair. Your character moves across the map in seconds, and the handful of locations takes only a few more minutes to explore. And then you're off the island again, and the game moves on to tell the rest of its story. If the original games were an adventure novel, Return to Monkey Island is more like a game of hopscotch. The new game's art style is similarly scrappy, cobbled together, functional, like a stop-motion animation with paper dolls. A lot of fans got very angry about it. It is everything but epic, and that is very much on purpose. The whole experience is constructed to move along at a swift pace. The overworld maps are compressed, there are little shortcuts everywhere, and double-clicking sends you zooming across the screen. The game also features a helpful hint book that, like a good Reddit post, will give you increasingly clear answers to a puzzle you haven't solved. All of it is set up to make you move along the ride as much as revel in it. The game took me about 7 hours to finish, which is probably about as long as the original would take if I played it now. But I, like most people, first played it back then. And back then, it took months. The comparison is just never fair. But Return to Monkey Island also feels deliberately speedy, and in many ways seemed to purposefully break immersion. I found myself popping in and out of screens, pressing through conversations with characters, engaging mostly with the surface. Return to Monkey Island is all about surfaces, about the theatrical, about the mask. Its nested structure doesn't only allow the designers to gently nudge their players in the right direction, but it's also a constant reflection on how we tell stories and on how they change beyond our control. All of which, of course, is nothing new to the series. What Return to Monkey Island made me appreciate most was the warm-hearted yet self-deprecating tone with which it deals with these issues. After finishing it, I went back to the original again, and if you look at it without those rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia, it is very much the same, silly and ridiculous and light. But the art style and the music just keep drawing me in. Like my memory is fighting back. It wants to make this game somehow a more serious experience than its humor accounts for. I'm not sure if that's because of its speed, its silence, or just because of my nostalgia, but there does seem to be an expansiveness that comes with the medium's limitations, something that cannot be captured again. I'm very curious if any of you feel the same about this. The end of Return to Monkey Island's story is perhaps frustratingly as dreamlike as that of Monkey Island 2. It treads back into the realm of metaphor. You end up, again, on this dreamlike festival with cardboard cutouts of the story you just played out. You finally find the fabled treasure chest with the secret in it and the key to unlock it right next to it. But it's up to you if you want to open it at all, if you want the conclusion you said you did, when you know it can never live up to your expectations. You then have to turn off the lights to the stage and walk out. The story in a story ends, and you get to tell your son what the secret really was about. Riches, or fame, or the friends we made along the way, and so on. The point, of course, is that it doesn't really matter. Your son skips off and Guybrush sits at a park bench and enjoys a moment of silence. It's hard not to see his creator here, enjoying the silence after being told by so many fans he doesn't take his own legacy seriously enough, and deciding he wasn't going to blog or talk about it at all anymore. And personally, I think this negativity has a lot to do with the demand of seriousness we feel when it comes to certain franchises. The explosion of reboots that we're living through is not just a cash grab, as it's often made out to be. It's a result of our shifting norms around the ownership of media. Fan cultures rarely meet each other anymore. They don't need to clash to survive. They are simmering inside their own segregated filter bubbles. We can find people who are just as fascinated with a media product as we are and get completely lost in it. That insulated fan culture makes us take many things way, way more seriously than the source material accounts for. If Return of Monkey Island shows us anything, it's that, in the end, the joke's on us.